There's an acronym we use quite extensively in the military, especially when it comes to our communication packages that we're putting together to be able to sustain and to maintain operations. I know that many of you know that that acronym is PACE, but what is it, why is it important, and how can we utilize it on a day-to-day function? And of course, PACE stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency. And what it does is it brings some redundancy to the table so that regardless of the conditions that we face or that we're met with, we can continue to sustain and to maintain our operations day in and day out. But there's a few tricks to this, and we'll break this down when it comes to our communication package. We'll start off there, and then we'll kind of delve into how else can we use this idea of the PACE in other areas of what we have that's going on. So when it comes to our communications, there are a few things to remember, right? The first one is that both parties have to be able to communicate on the same platform. And it should be noted that on the move and at the halt may or may not have two different PACE plans, right? In fact, I would submit to you, friends, that they need two separate and distinct PACE plans. Right? For example, on a day-to-day as a civilian, we know that our primary method of communicating with everybody else who's outside and around us is through some form of digital satellite communications, aka we're using our cell phone. Everything is IP based. And that's great, right? Because not only is it a great form of communication, but it's good for on the move and at the halt. At the halt, it might be a little bit more faster, right? Because we might be plugged in to some fiber connection as opposed to just being Wi-Fi only. Going Wi-Fi only, of course, it brings in some limitations when it comes to security. But all in all, it's a pretty secure means and method of communicating, and most people have that method. If I need to reach out to a family member or to a loved one, if I needed to reach out to a local civilian agency, I can do that from the touch of a finger to my cell phone. Outside of that, I need to ensure that everybody can operate on the same type of communication. For example, if I was going to go and use a ham or shortwave radio, but my distant end didn't have the same capability, then I'm fooling myself into saying that I have this awesome skill set or this capability of being able to use shortwave radio if nobody else is using it. Right? And so how we're going to implement PACE into our operations is in the mission analysis process. When we're looking at all of the operational variables that we may be encountering along the way from beginning to end. And we start to use this in-depth thinking so that as we continue to move forward, we have a better and higher degree of sense of security within our operation. However, most agencies that are out there that I may need to reach out to and get in touch with have that method and have that capability. Whether we're talking about search and rescue operators, or we're talking about local civilian police departments or sheriff departments, they all have the ability to talk on shortwave radio. So that's a great means and method to do so, and it's cheap and inexpensive to get into as a civilian. For 25 bucks, you can go buy a Bofang radio. And it provides all kinds of options and opportunities. And you have the ability to put in, encryption devices on both ends to make it even more secure. Maybe for a contingency, I wanted to use CB radios and use that wavelength. Easily available, not very secure, but it is another means or method, right? And after that, maybe I need to go in and be old school and use a postal service or use a runner. But having these ways that I can communicate across the spectrum, and it's all different spectrums at the end of the day, right? Not one is overlapping another. So it provides you that depth. It brings security in the depth. And it's important to do so, especially when it comes to how we can communicate. But a PACE is more than that, right? Because it's not just communications. PACE is again, it's about layering what we have. We get the concept of operations when it comes to layering our clothing when it's cold out. We layer so that we can take some off or put some more on, right? We get the theory, but we need to add this into everything that we do, into every area of operation that we're conducting. Right? I don't care if what we're doing is going on a short expedition, whether we're doing an overnighter, whether we're doing some mounted or some convoy operations in an urban environment. Whatever it is that we're doing, we need to ensure that we put this mindset, because ultimately that's what it is. It's a mindset that we bring to the table that says, I'm aware of, I am taking all risks into consideration and I'm mitigating them. I'm providing depth and capabilities. I'm looking out and thinking of all the what ifs, all these contingencies that may be out there. And should A go down, I have plan B. And because I know Murphy is out there, when plan B goes down, it's not if, friends, it's when. When plan B goes down, I have plan C and I have plan E. So you can think about it just in a short packing list when it comes to things like how are you going to prepare for making a fire, right? Maybe your primary means of making a fire is using a butane lighter, right? That's a great means of making a dadgum fire. It's reliable. It's powerful, right? It's quick and it's efficient. As an alternate, maybe you're going to go and use a Bic lighter. Maybe it's a survival type lighter setup that you've seen us create here in the past. For contingency operations, maybe you're going to rely on some matches, some waterproof matches. Not the little cheap waterproof matches, but the nice, good, the big fat dudes, right? And for emergency purposes, maybe that's when you'll break into using a flint and steel or a ferro rod. But guess what, friends? No matter what it is, you have to practice and be able to maintain and use every single one. And you have to actually have them, which means you have to do some pre-checks on them. We may call them pre-combat checks for what we're doing in the military, but the same principle applies with our packing list. If what you have isn't serviceable, it's not going to do you any good. You have to be ready and able to use everything and every piece of gear that you have on you. And so we put all these things together in everything that we do. And I know, friends, listen to me. I'm not an idiot, right? I'm not advocating that you go and run around with a 60-pound pack because you need to have redundancy in everything that you have. What I'm going to suggest to you, friends, is that you understand the risk associated of not having redundant systems or processes, of not having caches laid out, of not operating in some kind of depth in every area, whether we're talking about food, fire, water, shelter, first aid, navigation, communicating, the ability to make a core attempt, self-defense. Understand the risk of only having one item. The old adage is true. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And sometimes it's okay to accept those risks of only having one. But if you're not aware of the risks that you're taking, man, what kind of trap doors are you opening yourself up to? Right? It's like, man, you have to know, you have to be aware of everything that may or may not happen. You have to be looking at those variables and deciding what it is that you can accept risk on and what you can't accept risk on. If we're not doing that, then we're ultimately setting ourselves up or those who are in our charge for some harm. And I can tell you what, my friends, not on my watch. And so, friends, I hope you enjoyed the content of this conversation. I know just kind of walking around this old building. If you know what this is, leave some comments down below and take your best guess. And then I'll let y'all know exactly what it is. It may or may not surprise you. I don't know. But if you did enjoy it, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you go ahead and share this conversation with those who you may feel benefit from it, and welcome them into the conversation, into this dialogue, so that we can continue to strengthen and sharpen one another. As always, man, I appreciate every single one of you, and you stay out there, my friends, and you stay stoked. You stay stoked.